Hello!
Hello, everybody. How are we all?
How's everybody out there in alcohol land? I'm reading a comment about alcohol I just
Alcohol,
typed. How's
alcohol
everyone
land,
out there in alcohol land? How's everyone out there in lockdown land still?
alcohol land.
Yeah, I could do with alcohol land. I wouldn't mind alcohol land. How are you, Robin?
I'm not too bad today, actually, Pete. I'm feeling more chipper than last week.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, I think maybe it could be having one of my children at school. And last week he was still not wanting to go. It was all a bit stressful, but this week he's there and enjoying it. So maybe that's probably what's done it.
Could that be down to alcohol too? I don't know, maybe.
No, well, actually, I still drunk barely any. I think for me should be a slippery road.
once you pop, you can't stop.
Exactly. It was our anniversary in lockdowns. We did have some wine then, but my wife doesn't drink very much, and as we've discussed before, I don't drink very much. So I haven't had very much alcohol.
I think most people with children don't drink very much because they just know what a hangover with children's like, and it's just not worth it. It's not worth
It seems
being
to go
drunk.
it seems to go either way. I know a lot of functioning alcoholics. I
or
can
as
say that because none of them are watching,
or as we call them, school
and
mums.
they judge me.
They don't drink. Oh God, what are you? Some kind of new age
Judge
hippie?
me for some being a geek.
Yeah, screw it. Just
Yeah, I just sniff glue.
I just mainline things because it's easier than alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Loz drinks enough for both of us, says Matt. Well, I mean, whatever gets you through it, Loz. Whatever gets you through it. So this tonight's discussion isn't about alcohol and AA and how to deal with alcohol abuse during
Well, it could
lockdown.
be. We're pretty free form these days. It could be if that's what people want to
Yeah,
talk.
yeah. If that's what everyone's problem is, we'll talk
All
about that
six of
too.
you. There's only six people watching tonight. Obviously, nobody wants to listen about casual. Yeah. Well, yes,
Well, maybe you never know. You never know. You never know. I mean, we do know, but you never know. Um,
true.
Hello, Rob. Rob's just joined us. Hello, Rob. We've
Hey,
got
hello,
Mr.
Rob.
Marlowe. We've
And
got
Andrew's
Matt.
in. Hello,
And I
Andrew.
assume we've got Matt and Loz watching as well,
Yeah.
tucked up in bed. Although it's a
If
bit
you
warm
could
for
watch
being
by
tucked up in
different
bed.
counts to bring up the watching number, that would be great.
Yeah, anybody you can create some sleeper accounts just to boost that number a bit and make us feel like we're not abject failures in the world of hobbying, that'd be great.
Yeah, we need the boost because the big boys have entered the YouTube arena. I saw
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So we need the confidence boost.
But that could be, I mean, this is what we're talking about, casual versus competitive. How many channels are there out there doing casual play and how many are there doing competitive? Yes.
That's true. Hello there, Justin. Hello there, people. Justin says, and Megaloz, I love this. She says you'd have to drink, otherwise Matt would die.
Yes.
Is that because if you don't drink all the alcohol, then Matt will drink it and kill himself, or through alcohol poisoning, or just because you kill him?
I think
maybe
it
both.
because I think
Maybe
it because Megaloz will kill him. So she wasn't drunk enough to not care about what he was going on about. She'd have murdered him by now. You never know. Matt and Loz obviously been on the show and run their own little channel now, Into the Glory Hole. They are a couple what shades by together, and the couple that shades buys together stays together.
That's what I've heard. We obviously play a purely competitive channel. Yeah, we take everything else seriously. Yeah. Yeah, so we want to talk about competitive versus casual because it's come up a couple of times in reference to the new FAQ far list, bar list, fart list.
Fart
It's
list.
the fart list. If you play non-competitively, it's the fart list.
Yeah.
If you play competitively, it's the far list.
The Forsaken restricted list.
Yeah, and people were saying, oh, it's too difficult with the FAQ. The FAQ stretching to 17 pages, and that's just too much for casual players to keep up with and that kind of stuff, which I can see. But and I suppose I thought we could talk about that. I don't know how interesting that is to people, but I think it's still a
We'll find out. The
game.
numbers will go down if it's not.
Yeah, well, true. Well, it can't go down very far. That's why I'm wondering whether people aren't so interested in it.
Got nothing to lose.
I think it's a general problem, perhaps, that war games / Games Workshop games have this competitive versus casual game. And Matt's sort of said, which is quite right, casual players don't have to apply the far list though. That is true, but I think even in casual settings, like for example, in London, there's the group who usually meet at Dark Sphere. that's casual. But I imagine if you turned up with Time Trap and Ready for Action, you probably would struggle to get a game. So even though that's a casual evening, you can't just turn up with whatever card you like, because people, what are you doing? you can't just turn up with whatever. I mean, you can in advance. You could say, "Well, I'm going to bring this," and people will say, "Well, probably most people." Stop it! There's a slight delay on my screen. So anyway, I'm just going to go, and Pete could just fornicate with his Coke can.
Yeah, I don't know what's gone on there. We've reconnected. I'm not sure what happened there. Sorry about that, people. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what was going on there. I'm not sure why we got disconnected, but it's all back up. It's saying we have an excellent connection, so apologies for that. Sorry, we got a bit sidetracked there. Yes, I think whilst casual players don't have to play the fights, like you say, you're unlikely to be able to rock up someone with a bunch of Shadespire cards and Ready for Action and Time Trap and stuff and be able to just get a game. It's unlikely.
Exactly, and I think, judging from the comments that we get, and we always get some, and it's not from the really competitive players, when we play, because obviously we play catch up when there is a new file list, and we talked about this last week, and then we play a game, or we release a game that's got pre-file list cards in it, there inevitably are comments saying, "Oh, you can't play that anymore," and those people I don't think are excessively competitive. They just, I think everybody, or a lot of people, whether they play casually or competitively, like to play with the current game state.
Current meta. Not even meta really, but just the current ruling of things.
Yeah. So Matt's asked, have we recorded a post-far game yet? No, because at the moment we're recording on Thursdays. Yeah. So the last one, the last far lost the fast far list. The last far list dropped on Thursday, didn't it? And we didn't have time to, or the inclination to play games. I was going to play one.
We did play one. But it was pre-far list,
It was pre-far, so I didn't have the inclination to try and make Chosen Axe's deck work at the drop of a hat. So MacLeod, because actually MacLeod is probably one of the best people to comment on this, because she's come into it late and she is a filthy casual. There are lots of cards.
A filthy casual.
I was sort of missed out on due to being late to the party, but quite like to try some cards that aren't around anymore. An example being Ready for Action. Well, you should totally do that. Yep. In fact, we should have done that when you came on the channel.
Yeah, we should have, yeah. I'm still tempted to say that if anybody ever comes on the channel, they can still take Ready for Action in their deck. Whoever's playing, both sides can still take Ready for Action in their deck, because it's a fucking brilliant card. Yeah, some of the old cards had some very interesting ideas that weren't well executed, as Andrew Marlowe says. And I think that was back in their woolly days, where they weren't quite so hot on actually making the game's wording very good. And they're still not great on it. And they still keep effing cards up by making two cards sound the same and saying, "Oh no, in this situation, whilst the wording's the same, it means something different. And in this one, whilst the wording's the same, it means the same thing." You're like, well, don't be crap. Just
the latest FAQ had a couple of instances like that, didn't it?
Yes, yeah, like there was the Goblin one where playing 3 objectives on somebody. It doesn't mention about the fighter having to be alive, but you can't score if they're dead.
Loaded with plunder. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah,
but I feel like they've ruled something, and I can't remember what 2 cards it is, but there's one card. It might be the strange ruling around Stormsire, which we didn't actually talk about last week, where Spear of Gur you don't get the inspiration from that until you actually trigger the spell, which could be later in the round.
Yeah.
But there is I think an equivalent card for Scritch or something, or for the Skaven, which it triggers later, and they do become inspired if you play it on them. I think it's the Skaven because it's a choose them with this ploy. But they do become inspired at the point at which you do it, and not when the effect takes place.
Yeah.
So they're inconsistent in their rulings, which we're not here really to talk about the ruling inconsistencies. But VJ, you are the reason we're here. He's just arrived. We are talking about casual versus competitive tonight, and it was your question last week which kind of made me think about it, about whether it was getting too much for casual players.
Yeah.
And I think what I said then still stands, that actually the FAQ is almost there. It's mostly there, with a few exceptions, to tie up people who've kind of tried to wedge a crowbar into the rules and make something that isn't really there. And they're kind of, the FAQ is kind of there to nail that down, or to refix that gap, not to mix my metaphors. And I think you can play without reading the FAQ. There aren't very many things. A few things that you might, but I don't think there are very many rulings that are there that are like, oh well, this totally it was totally broken before that, and you couldn't use the card. I don't think there are many things like that. It's more people have broken the card, and the FAQ is there to fix it.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Just,
and I think
just
if you
to
were casual,
explain what they meant.
Yeah, if you were casual, I don't think you have that mindset. And it'd be interesting thing maybe to discuss is, at what point do you flip into somebody who just enjoys playing the game for fun to actually, I don't want to say abusing, but really starting
taking it more seriously, basically.
Or really starting to dig deep into the rules and kind of do see how you could, because a lot of the interactions are, as Michael Carlin has said in his podcast I've listened to, he's kind of looking for something to break that he can then exploit to make a tournament-winning deck, and that is kind of what competitive play is in some ways.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting one, because I'm going off for a bit of monologue here, Pete, so do chip in. I was thinking about it in terms of board games today. You don't very often get those kind of interactions in straight board games. They come about in these kind of war games where you're doing pre-preparation for the game. Like a board game, you come and sit down and you play it, and generally the rule set is the rule set, and you don't. I'm going. It's just getting ridiculous. The rule set is the rule set. You don't get people trying to abuse the rule. I don't think. I don't know. Maybe people might suggest that you get the people who try and collect extra £200 when they go past go and things. I don't know. But in this game, you've got more opportunity because you've got all that pre-prep and you've got all that reading around it, and not everybody knows every single rule for the thing that you're doing. I think so. There's more opportunity to I don't know if there's stack the deck in your favour.
I don't know if there's more opportunity to abuse the rules as in comparison to something like, say, 40k or AOS, where
no, I don't think there is.
Like
anything where there's a pre-preparation, so that includes 40k and AOS, you can break because you can do your homework, if you like.
To an extent, and I think for some things like AOS and 40k, you have that extra level that you can abuse it further during the game. Like you can have units where you snake them, like conga line the models across the board. So technically, one of your models in that unit is near your leader to get some bonus that the other guy who's 2 feet away of this unit of 40 models that you've conga lined across the board gets that bonus for, and that kind of thing. So I think whilst Underworlds, there is that level of abuse that can always be had in these kind of things, it's a little bit tighter than 40k or AOS's, because the exploits you can make aren't necessarily as obviously abusive. So I don't think anybody who made up AOS or 40k ever had their units strung out in massive long lines, because that's an obvious way that people might abuse the rules and stuff.
Yeah, so let's have a look. We've got a few comments coming in. And VJ says he's not sure if there is a flipping point. He thinks it's more innate to the person, which I do agree with. There are some people who are just born to do that kind of thing. And people tend to be either win at all costs or not. And I suppose there's a distinction. There's those who are competitive and those who are win at all costs. There's that's two different types of people, aren't there? Those people who want to win and they want to play the game well. And I put people like Aman and John Reese in that bracket, and they're good at the game, but I don't think either of those people, they take it very seriously, but neither of them, I wouldn't call them win at all costs.
So you've almost created a third category then. You've got like win at all costs, which are people who are willing to bend or almost break the rules to win.
Yeah.
People who take it seriously and competitively but aren't going to break the rules. They're not going to try and win at all costs, but they are going to play to the best of their ability, like people like Aman and John and
win at some cost.
Carlin. Yeah,
win at some cost.
And then
that cost being playing 200 games. Or
and
whatever.
then you've got casuals, which are us filthy casuals here that will play the game and just try and enjoy the game itself. So And I do think there's a difference though, because sometimes win at all cost players, like Matt says, they're the kind that will sulk and whine sometimes when you roll crits and you're having jabby dice, or they'll, you know,
Yeah.
But there are some people that are win at all costs from a non-abusive aspect, and I think that's kind of what you meant with people like Aman and John, that they want to play the game as well as they possibly can to win by playing the game well.
Yes, exactly. And I think, I mean, I wouldn't even. I almost feel like the people who sulk at a crit, they're almost a different category. Except they probably do this if they what I would call win at all costs. And for what I would say was win at all costs is like, I don't know whether it actually happened or not, or whether it was just an example of something that could happen. People trying to play their ploys immediately after their activation to stop anybody declaring an objective, and then saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've already played. You can't declare the objective now."
Yes.
That to me is win at all costs, because that's just being a shit. So that your opponent, that's not winning. That's effectively cheating, because you're not playing in the spirit of the game, because you're not allowing your opponent to do what they want to do. And I'd hate to win a game like that. Just to me, it's pointless. Oh, actually, I would have lost. But
had I not just quickly played that card,
stopped my opponent playing temporary victory.
Yeah.
So I beat him. I mean, that's not winning.
If either of us ever win a game like that, the other person will be there straight away to go, really? Are you happy with yourself now? Are you proud of what you just did? I don't think you are you? But I don't think either of us could look ourselves in the mirror after something like that.
No.
Because we aren't win at all cost players. We are.
No. And to me, that's win at all costs. And I can get a bit pissed off when I can't roll a crit. I tend to get a bit frustrated. But it's a combination of different things, and I wouldn't sulk in a tournament. I might sulk with Pete.
We've had plenty of that between us.
I might throw my digital dwarf across the board, for example. Although that was more in jest. But I don't know. And so that's slightly different to sulking. But I feel like Games Workshop seems to, as people are commenting there, that Underworld isn't too bad. But I do feel like Games Workshop, because it has, and these type of games, because they have the pre-preparation, people can put a lot of work into finding interpretations of the rules that suit them. And that's almost part of the competitive scene sometimes, but less so in Underworld.
I think, like you said as well, another difference between competitive and casual is the amount of time you're willing to invest. Because Michael Carlin said in one of his write-ups about the last Grand Clash that he played over 100 games with Rippers and then decided to take Grimwatch because he realised he'd played them more. I'm like, what? I don't think I've even played 200 games in my life, let alone 100 games with a single warband. So that shows a level of dedication for somebody who's taking it very seriously on a professional, well, not professional level, but a competitive level versus a casual level. I think casual players are much more likely to go, I'm bored now, let's do something else.
Yeah. So Rob says in his gaming group they loudly count to 5 when they want to play a reaction, and if the other person hasn't done anything by then, they get to 5, they move on. Which is fair enough. That's definitely one way to do it.
I think another way is just to sort of say, if you get to that point where you want to play a reaction, then your opponent goes, and now I'm going to do this, you go, sorry, I've got a reaction I want to play, and just butt in. And I think it's only fair that your opponent says to you, oh, sorry, shit, I didn't realise, sorry, go ahead, go and do that.
Yeah.
But your opponent
if you do get to 5, I think you should have the option to say, well, actually, I might do, so just bear with me a second.
Yeah. Or even straight away say, put your hand up and sort of say, I think I've got a reaction here, but I'm trying to work out if I want to play it now. I'm not sure if this is the right moment. And, with all these things, there's a social contract going on, whether it's competitive or casual. There's that social aspect and social contract where you're saying we're joining together to play a game of something. It is a game and it is for enjoyment. Even if it's competitive, there should still be some level of enjoyment there, even if the enjoyment comes from winning the game because you played it well. So people should always be willing to say, cool, I'll wait a moment, no worries. As long as your opponent isn't being a twat and isn't abusing it by sitting there going, no, give me 5 minutes, I need to think about this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's an interesting game, I think, Underworlds. I think it's in a very good place. I think even most of the competitive players aren't that competitive in that sense, in the win at all cost sense. I think most people like to play the game because it's a good game, and although they take it seriously, so we've talked about this before, but although they take it seriously, it's still a very friendly community. You don't hear the horror stories that you hear about 40k tournaments. And that might be because the player base is much smaller, so you've got a much smaller pool of people. For a start, when everybody knows everybody, or who everybody is, it's harder to be an arsehole because everybody will remember.
I do think as well it's because whilst the rules are slightly more bendable pre-game, during a game, they're not that bendable. So you can't like there's an old story I remember reading of a 40k player who would keep all of his army in reserve at the start of the game, so he wouldn't deploy anything. His opponent would then obviously have to deploy across the whole board to find out, to counter whatever this guy might play, and then this guy would then put all of his army on one side, boom, smash through, and would easily win because his opponent would be too stretched. And then he came up against one guy who had like a whole army of like scouts where he could deploy anywhere, and he basically put them all across the back board edge of his opponent's side, and then his opponent couldn't bring any of his models on because he had to be like 6 inches away from anybody, therefore he couldn't deploy any of his models the entire game, and he lost. And I think you don't get that level of abuse possible within Underworlds, which is probably a good thing, but I don't think you'd ever get that in a casual game because your opponent, one person's unlikely to turn up with an army which is starts off the board, because in casual games you want a little bit of everything. You want fun, you want to show off all your models, but two, if you did that and your opponent did the other thing, you'd probably go, alright, we're both equally large dicks here, we need to start this again and maybe try and have a fun game instead.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The Klaus Benjamin has confessed that he likes to play with himself.
He will?
Yeah. He's played 100 games of the Wild Hunt and lost 2 times, but as he plays both sides, he's on to a win.
Doesn't that mean you've lost 100% of your games as well? Now,
he's won 100%. It's just all half glass half full, half empty type situation. Now, Carl Beach in the house as well. Hello, Carl.
Hello, Carl. Now, Matt said something further back up, which I wanted to quickly answer, because he said as much as he wants to prepare for a game, and playing 100-odd games for prep is bonkers. No plan survives the enemy. And I do think that whilst that's largely true, I think the main aspect of playing so many games is that you get used to your set plays, and I've noticed that a bit more playing Underworlds Online a bit more, because that's much easier to get games in. I've played quite a few games with a very static deck and warband in that for a while now. I have a set number of plays, so depending on where the boards end up, depending on which board I pick, and depending on what my opponent is and the way they offset and the objectives have gone, I very specifically know where I'm going to place my models.
Andrew hasn't been concentrating, sorry, Pete, because he's asking what WASC stands for. It's win at some cost, Andrew. We defined it further up the chat.
We did. It's a new term that we're going to have forever, so there we go. So I do think that when you play that many games, you're playing it to make sure, A, you don't have dead cards in your deck that you think, I've never played this card never comes off, this card's never any use. And you also have your set plays where okay, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. And I think I remember reading, it might have been a John article where he was playing with his Skaven back in, it might have even been Shadespire or Nightfall days, where he put a comment and he said something like, I knew if my opponent put Severin on this hex, then he'd be dead next turn, kind of thing. And whilst obviously dice will F you up when you start thinking like that quite often, unless you can obviously roll enough crits, you start to get that set number of plays in your head where you know which pieces go where, and it's almost a bit like chess where you have your set number of plays. And I think that's definitely a competitive versus casual thing.
Worth observing though, if you do write things like that, you do sound a bit of a twat.
Well, there's a level of being confident versus yeah.
I do know what you mean though, because I'm still at that point with Underworlds Online where I still don't really know what I'm doing. If you know what I mean. So I've got a rough plan of where I'm playing Rawk. There's only really one board to pick, but and so I know where the models go, and I know the various orientations that the board might get put in, because I never win board roll ever. That's carried on into Underworlds. But there's very little I can do about it, so there's kind of best basically charge forward and go for it. And actually, how you play the Aurochs tends to be how the cards come out, because that depends on what upgrades you've got and who you charge with and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I do totally see that the more times you've seen a situation, the more chance there is that you'll be able to play your way out of it. So I can see the benefit of doing 100 games in advance. But you're going beyond knowing what cards are in your deck. Then you're, like you say, you're knowing, like you say, different set plays that are going to happen. What your opponent's most likely to do, or what the opposing deck is most likely to consist of.
Yeah. And I do wonder sometimes if there's an element of, because you do get casual players at Grand Clashes. There are casual players there. There are people who haven't played for very long, or people who are playing for fun, or who are just there like us, who just want to be there and enjoy it. And I do wonder how much sometimes casual player decks throw off competitive players. I wonder if there's people out there.
Maybe 2 in 10. I think that's the amount of games I've won. 2 out of 10.
So I do wonder, and I'd love to. Maybe we need to get one of the glass winners, one of the regular glass winners on to ask them about that kind of thing. Is how often when you come up against someone who's an obvious casual who just has a really random deck with some random idea in it, how often does that make them sit and go, shit, I have literally no idea what this person's going to do now, and I don't know if my play style is playing into their hands or completely going against it, or what.
Andrew nearly beat John, didn't he, at the Grand Clash? It was only because he bloody rolled double.
It's only because he rolled crits and killed somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he hit with her when he wanted to score a warning shot. It was only because of that he didn't win.
Yeah. So clearly, even, I'm not going to say that Andrew, you're a casual at all on this one, but even somebody who's not a top level player.
Calling competitive.
No, maybe not. But not a casual. But
Andrew's just Marlowe.
Andrew's Marlowe, doing a Marlowe. Yeah. So even sometimes it would seem that doing a Marlowe can screw up competitive players, I guess. Beaten by the eyes of the nine, no, the shame. It came down to a dice roll as well. So
to bring this kind of back round, which is kind of where I wanted to start, is the game in its current state off-putting for casual players? Because more than one person has said that in the comments I've read on Facebook and in our chats, and I can see why it could be, but I don't think it should be. And I wondered if there's a way to break that down for people. It's a bit difficult when we're locked indoors. We're not locked indoors anymore, but it's a bit tricky in the current situation. But I kind of feel like the game is if it is putting off casual players, that's a real shame. Because I don't think it should. I think everybody can enjoy it.
I guess it depends, because obviously when someone comes to the game now, and I did this today actually, someone online posted something about, I've just picked up Shadespire and Night Vault, and I immediately said, bear in mind you can't play Shadespire cards now in competitive matches and stuff, and Night Vault cards are going to get rolled out in September, but the warbands are still okay, so if you can get them warband specific cards, all right, but don't forget that you're not blah, blah. And I just thought, fuck, this is really, really suddenly everyone's like, wait, so I can use those cards but I can't use these cards? Yes, unless it's a Thursday or the third Thursday of the month, or if it's a Wednesday after New Year's Eve, in which case you can use any card you like, but you have to spin around 3 times and sit down. It's like, God,
you can use all those cards, they're all fine. So I can use Hunter's Reflexes. Well, no, you can't use Hunter's Reflexes because that.
Now, if you come back last week, you could have used Hunter's Reflexes, but now you can't because it's the next Tuesday in the month. Yeah, you get that kind of massive list of things you can and can't do, and I think if you're a proper casual player, real casual, then obviously none of those rules matter. Play Shadespire, Night Vault, Beastgrave, Fire List, Bar List, no one gives a shit list. So you can do whatever you like, but most people use some level of that competitive sort of structure to dictate their games. So yes, I think there is definitely a bit of a barrier there for that. Maybe more so in other games like 40k and AOS has a bigger barrier, but there is still one there in Underworlds.
There is, and it's interesting though, because we played up in London, one of our rare trips out before the lockdown happened, and one of the guys we played didn't have all the cards, and I didn't particularly notice that, but when you when people talk, there's always the assumption that everybody has the availability of the whole card pool. I think we tend to assume that, probably because most of us do. But a lot of people, I know John's written an article about what the best order to buy warbands and cards in. A lot of people, I forgot where I was going with this now,
Wait a minute, where am I? What day is it?
Exactly, yeah. Sorry about that. It's a tricky one because people do assume you've got all the cards, but there are also quite a lot of nice comments about, well, it doesn't really matter if you haven't got all the cards. If you're only playing casually, you can print out proxies and things like that, which obviously you totally can do, and I would recommend doing if you're just getting into the game. We do or tend to assume that everybody's got full buy-in.
Yeah, you sort of say to somebody, I remember one of those games, I think I was playing a guy who had Ilthari's Guardians, and he played some really wacky cards, and I thought, wow, I don't think I've ever played that card. That's an interesting card to have. And at the end, we sort of said, oh, how come he didn't take this card? And he's like, well, I've only got Ilthari and this other warband. Those are the only cards. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that will limit your pool of selection somewhat.
And we still only just beat him.
Yeah, we're still close.
He probably should have told us something.
Shit. Well, I remember the other tournament I went to at my local GW, I came up against, it was just after the Wormspat came out, and I'd made a magic-heavy Wormspat deck, and he'd come along, he literally had Beastgrave and the Wormspat, and that was it. So he obviously didn't have a lot of the cards Wormspat needed, and he didn't do great in the game I played against him because I had all the magic cards, so I was doing everything that I needed to do, and he was sitting there, he was like, so if I want to play a good magic deck, I need to buy more cards. Like, basically, yes, that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, and that is a problem, I think, to an extent. Whatever type, if you want to play aggro, you need more cards than just out of 2 boxes. If you want to play objective hold, you need more cards than are in 2 boxes. That's just the inevitability of the way the game's designed.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
But then that is a person who is obviously at that point, he's a hardcore casual player by dint of the fact that he only has maybe a warband and the main box going into a tournament.
Yeah.
So you are really a fish out of water in that situation. But at the same time, he still had 5 games. He still enjoyed himself. He still, enjoyed what he was doing and stuff like that. So, and that comes back to your earlier comment of the community is still really friendly. And Loz said that she's scared of playing different people because she feels like she'd be more of a hindrance than a good opponent. And I don't think for 99% of people who you play that they would mind, that they would still enjoy having the game. And if it were in a tournament setting, they'd be sitting there thinking, well, at least I get a win in this time. So I'll help them out and I'll help them.
I also think there's a nice element to most of the community, which actually helping somebody learn to play the game and enjoy their first tournament experience. Actually, for most people, is above winning.
Yeah, well,
I think, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'm not saying that people don't want to win, but I'm saying actually, obviously only one person can win.
True.
But and if most people, if they've gone home and they've felt that they've had a good, they've introduced somebody new to the game and they've helped them, I think most people will go home happy that they didn't win, but they did do that.
Yeah. I think in the Grand Clash I came less than halfway up the board, which for given our situation is probably quite a shit showing for me.
All right.
But the thing that made me feel worse
I finished lower than you.
But the thing
I finished halfway up the board and I was shit. Where did you finish, Robin? Well, actually...
Shitter. Sorry. But the thing that made me feel worse was the fact that after the 3rd round of games, one of my player, after the 3rd round of games, he never played his 4th round of games. And I was like, oh, I hope I didn't make him go home. I don't care that I didn't come anywhere near winning. I just hope I didn't make his experience worse.
His head in the last game. That's what I'm going to say.
Sorry.
You probably should have taken your foot off his head in the last game. That's what I'm going to say.
After screaming, "Loser! You lose! Suck it!"
Rob says, and I've completely forgotten this, Rob, but you're absolutely right. Beastgrave is doing a lot to make the game more casual friendly by having a deck ready out of the box. Just buy a warband and start playing. That is definitely true to an extent.
So as long as you don't pick one
some of them are much easier to drive out of the box than the others. Now, to balance it, I think it's probably a bridge too far for most companies. I think you have to do an awful lot of work to make 8 well-balanced decks straight out of the box. But yeah, that is true. It is much easier to jump straight into than.
And to be fair,
previously,
most games GW or otherwise, rarely is a situation where you can buy something out of the box. It's brilliant, it's balanced and fair and effective and competitive to play. But you can still play it straight out of the box without any other faffing around.
Yeah.
Mr. Myers says he doesn't get any pleasure out of beating someone who doesn't know how to play the game, so I agree with Robin. He would be far more interested in trying to get the other player to play better. So I'm assuming by that, Andrew, you did not take any pleasure on the Sunday about beating us.
He did both. He beat us and he taught us how to play better.
That's true, yeah.
That's two birds with one stone.
Shit.
I really enjoyed those games. And Malachi said he commented on the Patreon post, didn't he?
He did.
That he really enjoyed the casual games there. And obviously, I think playing casual games with people who enjoy the game is just it's where it's at for me. Which is why we were going to have our Agents Fest, which is sadly cancelled now. But yeah,
well, it's not cancelled. It's
postponed
sorry. For 12 months.
You taught you how to score Method in the Madness. Yeah, I did. I love that scoring Method in the Madness. Andrew, right, Zach and Matt are having a conversation here, which is Zach made an interesting point, which was as a casual player, he finds the farm bar list put him off competitive play. It's hard to plan his style, but Matt wondered what he meant by that, and I think Zach said he loves his skeletons.
He only plays against his son, and he does love skeletons. Yeah.
Yeah, but it seems to be not the most hardcore. But I think skeletons are actually quite a good place now, aren't they?
I think they might do better. And there is Mr. Marlowe's fervent petition deck might still be fairly viable, maybe.
Yeah, I think they're in quite a reasonable position. I think I heard rumour of that. Didn't they do well at this recent tournament somewhere?
I don't know.
Or was that the Goblins? That might have been the Goblins.
Yeah, I think it was the Goblins.
I thought it was a skeleton deck that did well somewhere, but that might have been pre-far. Anyway, I digress.
Sean Blake's on. Hello, Sean. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are babbling about competitive versus casual. Now, you mentioned Malachi, and that reminds me of something he said, and I'm probably going to mangle what he said now completely. But he pointed out that you kind of need both. That competitive players need a casual scene to be able to hone their decks and practice their matches in an environment where they don't necessarily have to be very strict about things whilst they're practicing, but also the competitive scene gives casual players something to aspire to, where they might sit and think, okay, I've got the hang of the game, I enjoy the game, but maybe I want to try and get a bit more competitive with the game now. Maybe I want to try and win me a bit of glass or something like that. So I think both feed each other quite well, which I do agree with.
Agree with that. One thing I would be interested in, and this has come up behind the scenes on Patreon tonight, is how do you become more competitive? I mean, obviously you can play more games, but I mean, I literally have no. I mean, I don't feel uncompetitive, yet the competitive types tagged us as casual and uncompetitive pretty much from the get-go without even really talking to us. So how do you? What is it that makes somebody competitive or makes them a good competitive player? Because I don't really know what it is. I couldn't tell you something. Apart from play more games, I couldn't say anything which would say, oh yeah, this would make your game better, Robin.
I think part of it, and a large part of it, I think, is possibly just how you want to play the game. So right. I think, I might be wrong, but I think a lot of people in the online community have tagged us and pigeonholed us as a casual channel, casual players, because we are. We both have on various occasions said, hand on heart, not competitive players. We're casual players. We're all about the fun, and yeah, I think a lot of the other people.
I only really realised that when I got crushed at the Grand Clash.
Well, the first one or the second one? We got crushed at both.
The first one. I'm a reasonably quick learner. I learned that after being crushed the first time, and then that was where Michael Carlin said to me it was really nice to see people who had just started playing having a video channel. Like, I had the game before it came out, Michael.
yeah, it is a bit like sometimes when someone comes and goes, "It's good to see you making an effort. Well done." Hang on a fucking minute. But I do think it's probably because just the way we approach the game, we do approach it from a casual, filthy casual aspect. You know, we do stupid stuff in our games sometimes just for the shits and giggles, and we do approach it from this thing's terrible if you like that, and we don't give a shit. So you know, red nose, honk honk, squirty flower on your lapel kind of situation. I think a lot of the other people who are more hardcore about it, more competitive, they've always approached it from that point of view of what are the best cards, what does the math tell us, which cards out of this new set of cards are the ones you should be taking, which ones are bullshit that you don't give a shit about. Whereas we sort of sit there when we review the cards and we're like, oh, look at this artwork, it's got a goblin. And I think that's, that's probably what sets us apart.
Tim says he's not casual, which is interesting. Well, I'm not suggesting you are casual, Tim, I don't know. You're obviously a good player. But I kind of feel like anybody who plays your crazy Auric deck isn't hyper competitive either, because I kind of feel like I don't know. You have great. I don't know. I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say without.
Your deck's mad, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, that's almost what. Yeah, almost. That's almost it. It's a work of genius, madness almost.
There's a very thin line between the two, isn't there?
Well, I wondered if you piloted a like an Aman deck, because obviously you must, in order to get the success you get out of the Auric deck, you must be able to see the board state really well at the time and play to the cards in your hand. I wondered if you played like an absolutely, because I mean we've played Aman decks and Grand Clash winning decks and scored mountains of glory when we have literally no idea what we're doing with them.
Literally the first time we've played them, first time we sat down with them.
And so I just wondered, Tim, whether if you played a more traditionally home deck, whether you clean up. I don't know. Maybe your style is mad genius, and you need that kind of frisson to make it work.
Zach does mention that he was coming to Agent Con, which would have been a great experience. Hopefully, when it happens, he'll enjoy competitive play. I do stress now, Agent Con will not be competitive.
No,
at all.
No, but it will play with some competitive rules, but it won't be competitive in the sense of the Grand Clash.
Exactly.
But I think by the time you've lost your first game of the Grand Clash, that's not that competitive after that. It's mainly just people having fun.
And I think a large portion of it is how you approach the game. A lot of people, approach from a math hammer point of view and just which card's best. And also, Kyle mentioned that competitive players generally play the same warbands over and over and over and over and over again to really hone their cards and their decks down. And we don't do that either. I think partially that's because we never did that, because the channel would be shit or shitter. Where you come from.
We can't play the same deck over and over, and we only play once a week. So that in itself means we're going to be less competitive, because obviously some people play 3 or 4 times a week, and that's not even online. An Agent's Filthy Casual T-shirt. I think we probably do need an Agent's Filthy Casual T-shirt. Should totally do that.
Going to make
Sean asked, have you guys ever played? Video's taking that message away. So it doesn't need a Filthy Casual T-shirt.
God, no, I don't want it. No.
Sean asked, have you ever played Magic the Gathering? Not really. You've never played, have you, Pete?
I've not played Magic the Gathering. I played Hearthstone for a while, which is kind of similar, but I quickly got bored of that when it became obvious, a bit like with Champions, AOS Champions, that if you didn't have the right set of cards, if you weren't playing one of the Uber decks, then what you would find is most of the time you would go online and just get absolutely smashed.
BJ's reposted his comment about the T-shirt, and he's still got a typo in it. Just saying. Sean. So I have played Magic, but a very, very long time ago, and I don't think it was. Well, it was competitive. I think I may have talked about this on a previous chat. Actually, we used to play in the chemistry department at university. I think it was 95, 96, something like that, and. We thought we were playing a great game. We were enjoying it, and then we went to play in the physics department, and I never played again because they just really showed how the game could be played, and it wasn't any fun. So I pretty much never played it again after that. It was almost like you're not playing it right, this is how you really play it. The deck destroyed us, and then afterwards, back in the chemistry department, it was like, Oh, well, there's not really any point in doing this anymore, is there?
Unless I want to go out and
It sucks all the fun out of it.
spend hundreds of pounds, yeah.
Yeah.
Maliki is online now. Hello, Maliki. I did quote you earlier. Hopefully, I didn't mangle it, but I did quote your comment earlier about casual and competitive games and how they sort of feed each other. So I think we are casual, and whilst we might go to grand clashes and stuff like that, I don't think we're ever going to be competitive because we're not those kind of people.
Yeah. So Sean has gone on to expand on his statement about saying there are 3 types of people: Timmy, Johnny, and Spike. And Timmy's a beer and pretzel guy. Johnny is a clever player who wants to win using a mid-tier deck. So he's Andrew. He's your Marlowe.
Yeah.
And Spike, he's your kind of win-at-all-cost guy who net decks and chases the meta.
Now we did mention. I mean, you can have a Spike who isn't one who net decks and chases the meta. You can have your Spikes who set the meta and create those net decks, and those are your Amans and your Johns and your Michael Carlins, and apologies to all the other big glass winners who I've now forgotten the names of, but but I think we've already discussed you can have different levels of win at all cost players, but I kind of agree with that. So I guess the other question, or rather to come back round to your question, which is how do you become a competitive player? I think one of the first steps is you've got to actually want to be a competitive player.
Yeah,
you've got to have that drive, and I don't think either of us have that enough to ever change from what we do now.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to say that you've also got to not have children, but I could be wrong.
That helps. I mean, I don't know out of all of the glass players we've got on the scene, all the big glass players and all the big names, how many of those people have small children, or even
So our time may yet come, because our children will leave home around the time some of those people will be having families.
We'll be sitting there going, I spent all night on this deck.
Except we won't be able to remember.
The dementia's kicked in now, so I can't remember.
I forgot.
Build the best decks in the world. However, the dementia will mean we will forget to write them down and also turn up in the wrong place instead of at the tournament, whilst also not wearing our trousers. So I don't think we'll ever be a competitive channel.
No, we won't.
And
we shouldn't try because we're not very good at it.
Yeah, possibly, but maybe we'd get better if we did try more. But I think it would make the channel boring. And I don't know what our viewers out there watching right now, or anybody watching this back later on thinks, and do comment below or shout out now in the chat. But I think our channel would be less interesting if we made it more competitive, because you naturally see less war bands and stuff like that going on.
I think competitive environments makes you more competitive too. That's true. Laws says we're perfect as we are. A long time anybody said that to me. But it's definitely true. You more competitive events you play, and the more competitive you become, or better at that kind of style of play, I suppose. Yeah. I haven't really. I still kind of touches back on what we were saying earlier. I don't sometimes we have a crazy idea and we try and do something, but I don't normally create decks that I don't think are good. If you see what I mean, I don't
deliberately build a deck that you think, oh, this is a real shit.
This is not competitive. I try and build what I consider to be a competitive deck, but I guess we do also try and do different things as well. So, and we do definitely shy away from whatever's dominating the meta.
Yeah, I'm terrible at that.
Yeah, well, I think that's because, again, that doesn't make for very interesting viewing, because if one of us is playing a Grimwatch deck which prints glory, then it's not very much fun for the other person, unless they take the same deck.
Or something that perfectly counters it, but very rarely do you end up with that immovable object meets an irresistible force kind of situation.
B, often the result isn't a surprise, although there are occasionally surprises. The fervent petitioner deck games against the the Wild Hunt, they threw up some interesting occurrences. I
mean, I did enjoy our games where we replayed the Grand Clash final, where we had Grimwatch versus Stormside. Those were fun. Well, I'll add a caveat there. They were really fun games because I won them all. Even when we swapped warbands, I still won. It would have been nicer if we both got to win a game there, but then it possibly would have been the same warband winning both games, so maybe that was shitter. So, I don't know, but it was fun to pick up a Grand Clash deck and play it and score loads of glory and see, oh, this is what a good deck does. But at the same time, I know we've just had an avalanche of people say, don't change, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I know. Pete, you did that thing where you say something and then people say nice things to us. I love it when you do that.
I know. Robin's feeling a little down. Tell him he looks lovely in the comments below. Give it 30 seconds, mate. You're going to feel like a superstar. But at the same time... Sorry, what were you saying?
Somebody's mentioned about Warcry reveal. Was there a Warcry reveal today? I missed that. I've been busy today.
Yeah, I haven't literally seen anything about hobby. We got some Necromunda stuff. Yay!
Ooh, well, that arrived, didn't it? Yay.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Necromunda. Very, very much looking forward to that.
I'm a beautiful princess. Thank you, Ben Howard.
There you go. See? Told you.
On my face. You notice it's slightly slimmer than it was a few months ago. You noticed that?
Matt likes your face, Robin. There you go.
Good.
So I think...
I like yours, Matt, although your lack of eyes I find disturbing.
The one with the googly eyes looks much better. So I like where we are
thank you.
in the hobby. But I am finding, since the new far list came out, it's kind of we've lost some stuff. GW have taken stuff away, but we haven't got our new bloody warbands yet, which I'm still waiting for, and it's starting to stomp on the game for me a little bit.
Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it? It's hard to keep going. It's funny, I don't really like it. Well, I think we talked about this last week, but I don't really like it when they mix up the cards. But I do definitely feel like it needs to change. But probably the main change I need right now is to actually play a physical game, which actually, after the announcement today, might not be that far away, which is quite nice. But yeah, I would definitely love to see the 2 new warbands as well, just to get some new cards and some new stats. Just some new stat lines.
Just some new character cards. Go, ooh, what's this do? And then we'll find out a couple of games later. Ooh, they're shit. but it's fun trying it for a little while.
What's the new cycle mechanic?
Yeah. Oh, no one's ever going to use it ever.
Yeah. It's a corroded rally chopper.
Ooh,
yeah.
Do we think that the delay on new warbands is related to Chinese production? No, because the warbands are made in the UK. I think the cards are Chinese. But all their plastics are done in the UK, so I think it's mostly just down to the fact that when this all kicked off, they initially said that they were going to be delaying their rollout and stuff like that.
Yeah, sorry. Shadowy ghost-like figure just appeared in my conservatory next to me here, but she's gone now. I think it was a ghost.
A ghost or your wife, one of the two. Probably a ghost.
She was asking me to turn the volume down. Pete was too loud.
Shut that idiot up!
Oh, see you, Ben. Ben's off.
There, Ben. Thanks for joining in. Tuning, something.
There were leaks. There were leaks of the Warcry thing. The new Dark Elf and new Flaming Chaos guys. Flaming Chaos guys.
Are they flaming?
Spoiling it.
Are they absolutely flaming? Super.
I've been intrigued, and it kind of ties into this competitive edge. Game. Sorry, I'll try that again. I've been intrigued by the new rules that they've been writing that have been appearing for 40k. The new, I can't remember what they're called, the tactic type things.
Yeah.
Because they are written in an almost impenetrable English, and I feel like that's a symptom of this subject of what we're talking about tonight, which is the competitive play nature of things. Because I think 8. After, not that I have much experience of 40k, but I feel like 7, the thing had got really kind of out of control. It was a really huge game, and 8 was almost like an AOSifying of 40k to slim it right down. And it had the what are they called? The command point things that you spend. What are they called? Tactics. Are they tactics?
No, command points.
But what did you spend them on?
Oh, good point. Someone will tell us in the chat in a moment.
Yeah, CP. Yeah. Anyway, those things that the rules in there are
stratagems.
Stratagems. Thank you. That's it.
At least people are listening. They're commenting, so they are listening to us. That's nice. Thank you.
The new ones that we've seen. Oh, I haven't seen very many because I haven't followed it that closely. But the new ones that I've seen people commenting on are really thick, wordy,
thick, juicy, girthy.
Stop it. Text that really kind of make sure there's no wiggle room, and that kind of comes. I think it's almost like 8th is almost like Shadespire, ninth is more Beastgrave, where sometimes you get really, really long descriptions that say and or this, and or that, and or that, to really make sure nobody can say, or it doesn't say, it doesn't say this, so therefore I could do it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Somebody at Games Workshop really needs to work out, or somebody needs to go to Games Workshop and go to them, dudes, have you heard about flowcharts and bullet points? Because if they could use those a little bit in some of their fucking rules, it would be a million times clearer.
Yeah, Rob says this is what I kind of feel, Rob. They're trying to make them as clear as possible, except instead of making the rules simpler, they're backing them out in more words. But I kind of feel like that's symptomatic of this casual, competitive kind of balance, which is that if you make it more accessible to casual players.
So I just read Carl's comment, the girthier they are, the less wiggle room. Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I've finished now. I've got literally nothing else to say.
Sorry.
Anyway, I'm just doing this as well, which is probably not helping.
I do think there is that balance where they're trying to make it accessible immediately for casuals by having all the rules explained up front without any kind of grey area, whilst also making sure that during competitive play there's no grey areas, so people can't abuse those rules and require FAQs and stuff like that. But like you say, that does immediately turn off a casual player who comes into the game and they go, oh, you've just got to read this handy 50-page guide on how to move. And
one of the stratagems they showed today, I literally had trouble to bring myself to read to the end of it. And I actually wondered if maybe if you got to the end of it, then you won the game. Because it was just really dense and really, I couldn't understand what the rule was meant to achieve. I mean, admittedly, it was completely out of context for me. I just, I'm lost now. I'm just reading the comments. I just feel that it's a problem they've got, is that if they make it casual and not too complicated, then people will start to put their own interpretation on rules. So then they have to write everything down to
the nth
bolt
degree,
everything down. So everything is rules as read. Rules as written. Sorry.
Yes.
Everything is rules as written because the rule is written in such exhaustive detail that there isn't any possible other way of interpreting it. Which makes it less appealing to casual players.
And the other problem GW have, and this comes back to my comment about using bullet points and flowcharts, is they decide to try and make all of their rules written in like the Queen's English. That they use 1 billion words when a flowchart would make it 100 times clearer, and it's a problem GW's always had. They've always been a very wordy rule kind of company. They always have 16 chapters just to describe how to perform a flanking manoeuvre or whatever, and you just think this could be done with 2 diagrams and a flowchart and a couple of bullet points and it would be so much clearer. But they don't ever seem to do that, and I don't know why that is. Really bugs me.
Matt has nailed it on the head. GW showed off a new rule in 40k and it's very wordy and lengthy and attempt to be as thorough and all-encompassing as possible. However, it genuinely reads so poorly it's difficult to decipher. Yeah, I would absolutely 100% go along with that interpretation of it. And it's a shame, and it almost makes me wonder, sorry Pete, it almost makes me wonder whether there need to be like 2 variants of the rules. The casual set and the competitive set, and that these are the ones you use at tournaments, and these are the ones you use the rest of the time. Yeah, it was dense cover. That's the one I was talking about. Yeah. And
I think 99% of these, well, not 99%. I'm just going to pluck a random number out of the air, but I think a very large number of these situations could be resolved with just a diagram and a flowchart.
You keep saying that, Pete. I'm not convinced. I don't think anybody's convinced by it. I mean, you can say it as much as you like, but to be honest, you're just saying like Boris Johnson saying it's safe outside.
Shush. I'm going to move on to something else instead of answering your question. I'm going to talk about something else, and I'm going to shout about, I know, White Cliffs, the White Cliffs of Dover, World War II, Churchill, something, I don't know. But somebody in the chat did actually, in one of the Facebook posts I read about the chat, they actually rewrote it with some bullet points, and it was like a third of the size and made a lot more sense. And people going, yeah, that's interesting. That's it.
So I hadn't seen that. That's interesting.
And maybe not every time, but in a lot of situations, I think a diagram and a flowchart would probably be 10 times better than just the way they write it, which seems to be favouring chapters and subtexts and God knows what else.
And I also think they could use keywords a bit more too.
God, yes.
because that would. I mean, I don't know whether it would help in the stratagem case. I feel like it probably would. If they had a few well-defined keywords, then especially for underworlds, then everybody knows where they're at. And actually, if they then change the definition of the keyword, then it changes it across the board without having to reinterpret everything. So I think keywords would be great. Keywords and flowcharts. That's what we need.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is, and I'll maybe get some flack for this one, but I think part of the problem for all of this is us, the players. I think a lot of people want rules that look interesting, that have some degree of depth, that look like they have some variation going on, that look like there are things that bring the whole thing to life. If you've got a 2-page set of rules that just says you roll a dice and your opponent rolls a dice and whoever gets the bigger number wins and the other person takes the model off the board, people would look at it and go, nah, fuck that, I'm not playing that. What is this? Is this a game for 5-year-olds? But the more layers you add to it, the more complex it gets, and then you end up in that, if you roll a crit and your opponent rolls a crit, then you haven't won. But then you have another rule that says if you roll crits, then you've had a critical strike. But if your opponent rolls a crit on defence and they've rolled a critical defence, unless your opponent's rolled a crit on attack, and then people just sit there going, don't understand what the fuck is this all going on about? Because we like rules, we like having layers. And I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And they like the variation. People love the variation, and then actually a lot of people obviously do like to. Part of their fun of the game is actually go back to the top of the conversation. They do actually like to find cracks in which to put their crowbar in, prop them open, and design their armies around that. And that's.
Just read Andrew's little quote there. The fact that I'm being compared to him is a little bit annoying, but I'm going to let it slide this time because it's funny, alright? But yes, I think because people like complex rules, or they like varied and detailed rules, and because people like jamming their crowbars in wherever they can, we end up where we are, and you end up with either these massively wordy rules or just this complexity which can be off-putting for casual players.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if anybody's seen it, League of Gentlemen, there's like a skit in that where one guy turns up to play cards with two of his mates and he's like, shall we play Snap? And they start talking about all these random games of cards, and they're all made up obviously, and they end up playing a game called Go Johnny Go 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 Go, and then it's like they start explaining the rules, and it's all absolute nonsense, and he's just sitting there like, I don't understand what's going on. They're like, don't worry, you pick it up as you go along, and then they give him a hand of cards and he puts a 3 of diamonds down. They're like, you can't put a 3 of fucking diamonds down. He's like, I don't understand.
I have seen that, yeah.
And it's that kind of situation where you just, a casual player could come along and just sit there going, I have no idea what's going on in here. And I think in AOS of 40k it's worse than it is in Underworlds, at least with Underworlds there's no ruler, for God's sakes.
No, I mean, it is better in Underworlds. It's interesting because VJ's actually said, GW always actually said it's your game and you can choose to ignore certain rules. And obviously in Underworld you can't really do that because it's a competitive game out of the box and it's defined. And you can't really say, actually we won't bother playing the crit rule. Well, but you could. But but they do say that for the big games. But how many people do it? And I mean, you could do it in your group, I suppose, if you agree. But because I think we tend to see most of their games through the lens of competitive play rather than narrative play, although I know there's some really good narrative play groups out there. It doesn't feel like people do that, and it does feel like you have to know the rules in order to play. So anyway,
and I definitely think the more you start to implement that's a stupid rule, we're not going to do that kind of scenario, you immediately start to reduce the group in which you can play in on a generic basis. You can't just turn up a GW and go, by the way, the infighting rule for my orcs is a bit shit, so I'm not going to play it. Your opponent's going to be like, no, that's the whole idea of that rule, it makes you worse. It's unlikely to work.
It is what now? Hello, I don't remember you commenting before. Nice, thank you for watching.
Ooh, hello, it is what now?
It's worse, much more complex games than the rule mode so that they can virtually allow any player, regardless of skill, knowledge, to feel good. Which game is that though? Sorry, is that 8th edition or the new edition? Or something else entirely? AOS, yeah, I mean that's true. AOS, I kind of almost liked AOS when it started. It felt simple and you could play it, but very quickly there were so many things bolted on it that it became too confusing for somebody as old as me to remember all the modifiers.
Also, it was so simple that it left a lot of stuff a bit grey and woolly, and you were like, okay, what do we do in this situation? I guess we'll have to make something up. And then obviously people then asked GW, what the hell are we meant to do in this situation? Then GW started to come up with sub rules for all that kind of stuff as well. But I think, yeah, I liked AOS over Warhammer. I think the regular Warhammer game got very, very stale and very slow to play.
Yes, yeah, it did.
But AOS maybe went too far the other way.
So there you have it. What you're saying now is exactly what the competitive type's been arguing for. Yeah, and I think it's always going to be a problem. I think Warcry actually probably is a good balance. I know there have been some competitive Warcry games, but they've kind of got quite a good rule set there. That it just kind of works in a non-competitive way quite nicely. I know it can throw up some unwinnable situations, but I think you don't go into Warcry thinking, "Oh, this is a serious game." I don't think. Well, I don't. Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of people out there who say, you know, I liked Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I preferred the whole moving units and the complexity and all that kind of thing. And yeah, each to their own. Some people loved that, but I think the majority of people, and that's why it wasn't doing so well as a game and sales were tanking, a majority of people found it very slow and overly complex on some very basic things, and that's why a lot of people didn't like it. I mean, I used to love playing Fantasy Battle when I was a kid, but I think as I got older, I just didn't have the time to invest in that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that also comes down to your pool of players as well, doesn't it? Because I think now we're older, we have to go out of our houses to play.
Yeah.
And you play in clubs and things, so you have to. You're playing people you don't know that well, or at least to start off with, you don't know them that well. So you kind of all have to have an agreed. This is how we're going to play. When you play with your friends, I must have played about a gajillion games of Warhammer Fantasy Battle with my friends over the 4 or 5 years that we played it. But I imagine, looking back on it, that we got the rules right maybe on one occasion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you just played how you wanted to play, but it didn't matter because you were playing with friends and you were just kind of part of the fun was making it up as you went along. But as soon as you go into a club or a competition environment where you don't know people, then you have to start playing to the same conventions.
Rob was pointed out earlier, wasn't there meant to be a My First Underworlds on the way at some point? There was at one point. They talked about a kids' version of Underworlds.
They did. I'm interested in seeing that, but it's kind of gone away again. So I don't know whether it's in development hell or whether they're just not going to do it.
I do also think that a lot of people saying Warcry, brilliant, solid rules, very tight. I'll agree with all of that. I think it is a very tight, quick set of rules to play. But I found the game itself very uneventful. In that, you know, it didn't matter if someone died or not. It didn't matter if you failed that mission or not. It didn't seem to be very.
No,
there was no consequence.
I didn't. At the end of the day, I didn't want to play it more than I wanted to play Underworld.
Yeah. And I'm also aware that I'm going to argue my own point now. Whilst it wasn't very eventful in that it didn't matter very much what happened. At the same time, I kind of like that because if you ever played like a league in Blood Bowl or a tournament or a campaign, you would invariably get those situations where your spate of bad luck mean you lose a couple of games and it snowballed out of control and your team or your gang or your warband just got worse and worse and worse and you couldn't really compete, so you just gave up because you were screwed, whereas the other people who had a few lucky games would just get better and better and better. So at the same time, I quite like the fact that losing a game doesn't mean you're screwed. So I can't decide which I prefer.
The other side of Warcry was people becoming too attached to their player/fighters. That's interesting. And VJ is saying that he assumes that there are more people like him who choose their warband for the minis, faction, and lore. Yeah, which I think that's kind of what Warcry is for, isn't it? I don't think. Yeah, I've seen the odd post. Which is the best warband? Which one should I pick? And then most of the replies are, if that you're asking that question, this game isn't for you.
yeah, this isn't that. We don't do that here. You almost need that meme from is it Black Panther or whatever? It's like, we don't do that here. That's not what this is about. So I think, but I don't think you're ever going to get a competitive game in Warcry. Really, not a serious competitive game in Warcry because it's not balanced at all.
Yeah. It is what now? It's very sage. It's brilliant advice coming out.
Underworld
We
has
should
this
take over. Underworld has this locked down because there are no buts in this game. It's a fixed set of rules and you have to abide by them. Yeah. Oh, VJ meant warbands in Underworld. Sorry now, VJ. I'm trying to follow so many threads. I've lost. Did you mean about the starter warband? Because I think that's quite a nice idea you mentioned further up, or just having a easy play warband.
He meant Underworlds. I think he meant he picks his warbands based on
Okay.
what he likes. So
Yeah,
if he likes Beastmen, he'll go for the Despoilers, whether or not they're competitive.
I mean, I definitely have favoured warbands, don't we, Pete? We don't play. Yeah, I think, and a lot of people who I would like to think Agents fans play based on the warband they enjoy rather than the warband that's most likely going to win. I don't think many people here have switched from Thorns to Hrothgorn. Sorry, from Grimwatch to Hrothgorn back to Thunderix Profiteers in the last 3 months.
I'd say I generally get attracted to the warband I like the faction of first. That's generally my first selling point because I was never a massive fan of the Grimwatch models, but I love me some Skellies and some Skaven and stuff like that. But I do enjoy winning, obviously, or having competitive games. So that's why I don't play the Skaven very much because I suck with them. So I do like some of the other warbands because they're a bit more competitive. But again, like Wormspat, I love the Wormspat models, but I'm not going to take it to a tournament ever.
Anthony's never played the Grimwatch. I don't think we've played them very much. I think we played them when they first came out, realised how good they were, and then put them down.
Yeah, they started to do well at the Grand Clashes and stuff like that, and it became obvious until Hrothgorn came out and started to settle a bit that he was the new king of play, and we didn't bother playing Grimwatch because it was just like, well, they're the de facto winning warband, so meh.
Rob has said he's played Thunderix, Rippers, Grimwatch, and Hrothgorn. Well, yeah, Rob, we all know you're super competitive, so that's fine. That's fine.
And Mollog, disgusting. Wash your mouth out.
If Malachi says they get bad cards in Warcry, just draw a game. Yeah, we have done that, haven't we, Pete? When we recorded our few games of Warcry.
Yeah. Sometimes you get out all the scenario cards. You go, this is going to be a shit game. Let's do it again.
Yeah. Looking awesome is how the eyes lure you in. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, and there definitely is a thing in Underworlds is that people say there are certain people who like to play the less fancied warbands because it's more interesting.
I mean, I don't know if interesting is the right word for me. I mean, it can only be so interesting getting continuously pounded game after game after game.
Depends who by.
By you.
Yeah, nobody finds that interesting. You're right.
But so there is that aspect where you just sit and think, I want to actually win some games. So I'm not going to go back to Axes again or Wormspat or something like that because I don't think I've got much chance of winning. But I would still like to pick warbands that I like over a warband where I see anything, because I never really played Cursebreakers. I never like any of the Stormcast warbands. But for a while, obviously, Cursebreakers were the warband you pick if you want to win in the heyday, and I'd never played them during that time.
No. I mean, I tend to play them just because they're they're the new hot. Well, they're not the new hotness, but I've tended to play them when we wanted to show them off, rather than any desire to do so. I still think Gits and Eyes of the Nine are my go-to warbands. If you said you've got to play a game this weekend, who are you going to pick? I think that's probably who I'd pick.
So it is what now? So the chance of getting win at all cost Grogs is much slimmer in Underworlds, and we were discussing the different types of win at all cost players. Obviously, win at all cost players that can do anything to lie, cheat, and steal their way to winning. Yes, I think you've got less of those in Underworlds because it's much less easy to do that, but you do have people who are uber competitive and want to play the best game and will have the best warband with the best cards, so you do still have that aspect of it in there, but it's not quite, it's at least it's not as offensive. Like when you come up against a 40k warband and a player who is literally doing everything they can to win, that can be a much less interesting game, whereas at least coming up against someone in Underworlds who has the Grimwatch from pre-Farless days with their how to print glory deck, at least you can play your game even whilst they're sprinting off into the distance.
Yes, absolutely. Excuse me. Just reading the comments, lots of comments tonight.
Many
lots of discussion.
Really good. It's great.
Yeah.
So I think we had earlier. Some people said, yeah, VJ agrees. There's plenty of whack tools in Underworld. There are, but at least they're not as in your face and offensive. I
Yeah,
think.
and somebody else has made the comment that it doesn't matter quite so much because games are over quicker and the investment is smaller.
Yeah,
So people get less up, hot under the collar
less
about
aggro.
it.
Yeah, if I had a 40k army that I'd spent several £100 on, and I paid somebody else to paint for me so I could take it to a tournament, I think I'd be very pissed off if I started to lose games left, right, and centre to other people who were cheating better than me. If I spent £500-600 over Underworlds where I've bought,
Yeah,
just some warbands or whatever.
I think the good thing about Underworlds is that again, I think we have said this before, so I seem to send myself saying a lot, but I think I've said that before. If you assuming you're a semi-competitive player and therefore you've bought everything, so you've got access to everything, which obviously has a buy-in. If they nerf something, so if, for example, they take out Hunter's Reflexes and that ruins your Hoshgorn deck, then you've got everything else to fall back on. Whereas if you've taken, I don't keep up with it, but if you've taken, I seem to remember people saying there's a certain Siege army was really powerful. I don't know which game it was. If you've taken that and you've invested a gajillion pounds and hours in painting it, put it on the table, and then they nerf the rule that made them OP, then you're going to be fed up because you can't just switch to Oryx or Stormcast because they happen to be the current hotness. Whereas in Underworlds, okay, you go and you've got your brilliant deck, and they change the rules so it's no longer brilliant. You have all the tools, you have exactly the same tools as everybody else who's invested in the game to create the next new hotness.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't have that in their bigger games.
Yeah, and I think that does help reduce the win at all costs element to an extent. And I agree with VJ that in any competitive game you're going to have win at all cost players, but yeah, in Underworlds, because everybody can play anything at any time, it's not as bad.
No.
And it is what now pretty much summarises it though. He says he plays AOS more than Underworlds, but it depends on his opponent if he has a good time or not, and that is the defining factor in all this. If your opponent's an arsehole, it doesn't matter what you're playing, you're not going to have fun.
That isn't what he's saying.
He says if
it is to an extent, but he's kind of saying that he can have a good time even if his opponent is an arsehole in Underworlds, I think.
Possibly as well, possibly, yeah. But in general, in any other game, if your opponent's
it really matters because there's so much. I think there are so many interactions that you can take advantage of to win, or even not to. That it becomes painful to play somebody who likes doing that. Because there are so many modifiers and things to remember, even just the act of remembering your modifiers, and you have to. I think you have to rely on your opponent to be honest about what their modifiers are, because there are so many. It's hard enough when I've played it. It's hard enough keeping track of your own, let alone your opponents. So you have to assume that they're not going to forget that actually they're -1 for save this time, or they're not going to conjure up an extra +1 from somewhere that you've forgotten about, or that you don't know about, and they've just made it up. I think that's a real issue in that game, and it's very hard to. You almost need a computer. For me, it sometimes feels a bit like D&D 4th.
Yeah.
Where you almost need a
spreadsheet of some kind
sort of
to track it all.
spreadsheet or a computer to calculate what the correct dice rolls are. Especially when you start bolting on endless spells and zones of because of the terrain does things as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Says Floppy like he hasn't played the game for 5 years. Whereas Underworld doesn't have that either.
No, there's definitely it's definitely a lot more tied down than things like 40k, and I think things like AOS and 40k, obviously the whole open boards, 360 degrees of movement and 3D terrain, all that. There's so many variables that can come into it that there are so many more ways that a win at all cost player who in Underworlds might really want to win but can't obviously bend the rules very much because it's very clear whether you have line of sight or whether you don't, can push that envelope a lot more in 40k and really argue the point that that model's not actually completely obscured. Therefore, I don't get this modifier, or I get that modifier, or these kind of things. So the minute you take a ruler out of the equation and 3D terrain, I think you really can remove a lot of that kind of stuff.
You've got no modelling for advantage problems.
Exactly, and I think that's
and even the modifiers. I mean, you can forget them in AOS, not in AOS, in Underworlds, but it's easier to remember them, and it's easier to prove whether they had them or not if they've got the card on them. I often forget the card, and I have had games where my opponent could have told me anything. They could have just said, "Oh, I'm rolling 7 dice," because I've been on the ropes at that point, and they could just say anything. But it's much harder to fudge, I think.
Yeah. I do like what now has just said, which is he personally believes that it's our mission as Underworld's fans to really continue to prove that we can have these short, intense, fun, really memorable games. And I agree with that. I think
then apparently Anthony has just summed up the entire chat in 90 minutes, so we can probably go home now.
What's that?
Well, Andrew says that's what he's done. He says, it's a really good point. I think it's important to remember that you're going to encounter people that derive enjoyment in different ways. The best part of playing is when you find people who want to play the way you want to. That's absolutely true.
100%.
That's absolutely true. Although there are people whose way to enjoy the game is to crush their opponent into the ground, and that isn't fun for anybody.
Well,
because even if you get 2 people who like to do that,
that's true.
One of them's going to come away unhappy.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, yes, unless one of the 2 people derive enjoyment from getting crushed and watching their opponent crush them and enjoy that.
Yeah, but then you're into a whole different psychological S&M kind of situation. I don't think that's for us to unpick.
Yes, there's definitely I'm trying to think of the word now, but people who enjoy the game for the social interaction more are always going to be bigger winners when they find like-minded people. And that's not to say that 2 really competitive people. I'm sure that when John and a man, or a man and Michael Carlin or whoever, when these really competitive players play each other and one wins and one loses, I'm sure that whilst the loser is a bit annoyed that they lost, maybe because of a duff dice roll or their cards are a bit shit, I'm sure that even then they can sit and go, you know what, they played a good game and I'm going to take something away from that. So absolutely. There probably is that aspect there too. Underworld S&M edition.
That's just laughing at that.
What Dead Ends comment?
So where are you from? It is what now? Because in your country the sample size of Warhammer players is small. Are you from Wales? Regards for spin-off, so that we have Imagine trying it out when it will cost a guy from the community here. Yeah, that's true. Strip Underworlds. No, we really don't need to go that way. Don't need to go there.
Antti has pointed out there are a couple of people in his local scene who always go for the juggler, and it kind of sucks to enjoy the game. And I agree. Even in Underworlds, I quite often don't like, if it's a random matchup like on Underworlds Online, I'm going up against someone, I don't mind going for that jugular moment where I think, if I put all these cards on, I can one-shot Gerzag or Magor and I'm going to totally F their plans up. And I don't mind that when it's a nobody I've never met online before. So if I do encounter you on Underworlds Online, I do a dick move like that, then I apologise. But generally, if I'm playing a game against you, Robin, or even if it's like at a Grand Clash, I'm much less likely to do that. Okay, I'm going to pile everything into this one attack and take this, this linchpin character out, because I just think the game's going to be a bit more dull if I do that. I'd rather play a full, I'd rather play the full 90 minutes and enjoy the whole thing than have it be over in the first round most of the time.
I'm not sure about that. I think at the Grand Clash.
Okay, maybe not the Grand Clash, but I never got the chance to, so that's why I'm using that. But generally, if I'm playing games online, even in our Underworlds Online tournament against people, I'd rather play a fun, full game than absolutely hammer someone in the first round.
Yes, yeah, I would agree with that. It's about hammering somebody, for me at least, and Pete definitely, it isn't actually that much fun. You kind of think it is, but then when it's, it
just gets awkward.
It just isn't at the end of the day, especially if it's like just dice rolls.
Yeah,
it's just embarrassing at that point.
Especially if it's dice rolls. But even when you have those games and all your cards come out exactly how you want it, you're almost a bit, I know this might be our general Britishness coming through, but when you have that moment where you have 5 perfect cards and you play them all and you go, that kind of means I've just killed Gerzag or Mollog or whatever, you're kind of like, sorry about that, it's kind of, and the other person, no, it's fine, it's absolutely fine. That's that's the game. That's how we're playing it. And you're like, yeah, I know, but and neither party's particularly happy with it.
No, talking about British, does anybody else wish their car had a, like, as well as a horn, had a little thing that kind of said, yeah, exactly. Excuse me, do you know the light's just gone to green? I was thinking that today while I was standing behind somebody who the light had gone green.
It's right next to the horn. You don't want to press the horn.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what you need. Yeah.
What it would do is it would do the car equivalent of sorry, just and then there'd be that no speaking moment, but just sort of like a bit of a point, and the other person would go, oh sorry, yeah, and then you go or something like that. It's a bit like when you ask if someone's in a queue. Sorry, you? Oh, sorry, no, never mind. Anyway, you kind of need that for the car because the horn is just fucking move.
He'd like a sign in his car, but it's not for that. Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Anti's just said that he's been responsible for some bad games in 3-player when he wiped someone's Stormcast out in the first round. It's kind of
me.
It kind of gets me like, so what do you want to do in the second round? I guess I'm doing nothing, aren't I? Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Matt says, might be nerves, he does enjoy the first game. I find, like when we went to the Grand Clash and Andrew kind of, Mr. Marlowe summarises perfectly, it's not until you get to like round 3 when you actually calm down enough to actually enjoy a game. First couple of rounds, terror.
Yeah. Although I find when you've lost 3 in a row, your head starts to go down. You start to see the next game going the same way. I think they've actually been worse. My third games have been worse. And I think I might have won one of them. I can't remember, but just going into that, you start to think, I really need something to go right here. And then you do the first ball roll off, and they roll 4 crits. And you just think, oh, okay, it's not going right.
And you can try and be zen in those situations. Like, it's okay, it's just the first roll. Okay, so I'm going to make this attack. Okay, I've missed that completely. Okay, it's fine. I can make another attack. I'm just going to make this attack now. I've missed that one too. Okay, fine. Third.
That is actually when I hate this game most.
Yeah.
I don't mind losing, but I hate it when just nothing goes right. And it's just like, oh, we've had games with this people, and I'm just like, well, if I just make this attack, then at least I'll score this objective, and I'll feel like there's a vague chance I might draw something a little bit better, and I might make it respectable. Miss the attack, or even worse, your opponent crit defends the attack you've just successfully rolled, and at that point, that's when I start to lose faith in the game.
I've had that in a few games in Underworlds more because there's not really so many. There aren't any reactionary attacks now, I think, in Beast Grade, but in Underworld there were things like my turn and stuff like that. So you think, okay, I'm going to charge this person. I just need to maybe knock them back. So you roll your dice and they miss. You're like, okay, I've missed, that's fine. Oh, they're playing my turn. Okay, fine. Oh, they've hit me. All right, that's my guy dead. Cool. So that was a net one person dead for me on my turn and my attack that fuffed up completely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got hammered this week in our Patreon Underworlds Online tournament by Crit Def Matt, and I had a similar situation. It's like, oh, I can't believe this. I've got nothing going for me. Well, I can actually kill his queen if I can attack, and then I've got a shard, and I draw into Shard Gale, which I did do. And as long as he hasn't got Great Fortitude, I can kill his queen. Oh, he's got Great Fortitude. Oh, well, okay, fair enough. Doesn't matter. All I have to do is land. I've got trap in my hand now. All I have to do is I don't even have to hit. I just have to push him back, and I can kill the queen. Charge him, miss the queen. Queen killed whoever it just charged in. Okay, I've still got somebody else left. Still do it. Charge in, miss the queen. Queen kills the next person. Okay, well, it's not going well, but Gerzag will be okay.
Gerzag's the savior.
Queen kills Gerzag. It's like, for God's sake.
Yeah, that's when the game really, really bends you over and makes you just say, why am I doing this? Why?
So I think scored no objectives and just killed nothing. I did eventually kill somebody with the shade glass spear, and there was much cheering at this end.
Yes, I definitely think. So I'd noticed there's a comment about fluff players from Itis. Do you mean fluff players for Underworlds, or do you mean for other things like AOS and stuff? I do find that I notice you get some fluff players, as in people who play to the the look of the game. And I found there are two kinds of players that I come up against in there: the people who build an army or whatever because they just like the look of the army itself, which is one way of playing, and that's just people who like the aesthetics of it. And then you get the other people like, okay, I like the aesthetics of the army, but I also want to have an effective army at the same time. And I don't think there's a wrong way of playing either one of those. I prefer coming up against the first because I prefer a warband or an army that looks thematic. But that's just the way I play it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think in Underworlds, in some ways, being a fluff player is perhaps. I mean, VJ has said lots of times he doesn't particularly enjoy playing competitively, or but. It is an interesting one, I guess. If you're playing fluff, then and theme, if you like, in Underworld, you're likely to get beaten more. Which, if you don't mind doing that, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't mind losing, or that's. I could. So it's interesting. There's a big discussion going on between VJ and It Is What Now. And I can see both points of view.
Yeah, I would disagree with what he said, whether he's a unicorn. I don't think that VJ is a unicorn for picking the aspects that it just appeal to him most. I think in Underworlds, you're more likely, in Underworlds at least, to see a lot more people playing a more competitive setup, just because you can't really make the warbands in Underworlds fluffy beyond just using, say, warband specific cards and stuff like that. And you are probably going to like you said, you are probably going to hamstring yourself a lot more in that situation, because they're not going to be very competitive. They're not going to be very, very strict, or not strict. Strict's the wrong word, but they're not going to be very competitive or competitive. I can't think of the words I'm trying to come out with, but you're not going to do as well in that kind of situation as if you play like a just a really meta heavy sort of warband and deck that's just going to do better. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, though.
Being beaten. He just prefers being beaten by somebody who's not being an arse about it. I think we can probably all agree on that.
Yes, I don't mind who I lose to, so long as I have fun losing.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had games like that where one of us has won by an absolute landslide, and I don't think either of us has enjoyed those kind of games, regardless of who wins. No. And then we've had other games where it comes down to that last dice roll or something like that, and it's like
the last 15, turn of cards. I love that.
Yeah, 15 plays 16 at the end or something like that, and I'd rather lose all of my games like that than win them all in a massive landslide.
Yeah, there was one game where I didn't think I had any chance of winning, but I scored a couple of objectives at the end, and you only needed to score one objective, and you'd have won. But you didn't score any, and I couldn't believe it.
It's one of those things you're like, oh god, they're going to have scored fired up or something else, and then your opponent goes, well, I've got bugger all, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. I think I pulled it back to equal, and I was on an objective and you weren't. Just kind of like, all you had to do was score one card, and you'd have won. And you didn't. Yeah,
and I'd rather lose all my games in a last card, who's got the most objectives kind of scenario than win them all in a landslide any day of the week.
Yeah. VJ said branding it the competitive game didn't do any favours regarding bringing theme and fluff based players. I guess that's true. It doesn't. For me, it doesn't really have that fluff. But I don't play for the fluff as such. Not in the true. Not in the not true sense of the word.
You kind of do from a look point of view.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't. The narrative. I like narrative games, but I don't find the AOS narrative world particularly interesting. Though that said, Soulbound is the role playing game is gradually sucking me in. It's not big, high, epic battles, huge monsters, silly gods. It's kind of much more personal level. It's drawing me in, much like Wolfrup did. So, but I'm only reading it very, very slowly.
But we're very likely, in our circle, we're very likely to play Soulbound in the least efficient way possible.
Oh yeah.
We're certainly not going to go, if I take this skill and this ability and that weapon, that means I can do this thing over and over and over again, and that's just not how we play the game ever.
Yeah, I noticed in a few don't follow it that closely, but noticed some of the few Facebook comments early on when the game came out. People were saying, "Oh, you do realise if you take this skill and do this, then you can basically attack infinitely and kill everything." It's like, well, you can do that, but that's not really what a role-playing game is about. This game may not be for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I remember seeing in one of the Facebook groups for the Soulbound thing, someone basically said, "Am I right in thinking if I take this thing and do this thing, does that mean I get unlimited damage or something?" There was some question like that, and a lot of people basically came around and went, "It's not really the idea."
Yeah, exactly.
It's just that's not how it is meant to be.
Exactly.
And I think all of this basically really highlights the fact that it's your whilst competitive and casual are both very important aspects of the game, it's your attitude to the game that decides if you're a filthy casual or an elite competitive player. And I think in that sense we're always going to be filthy casuals.
Provides such a great framework to do whatever you want with it. I read from the perspective of DM, and it offers great tools to make your players feel important in that story you make. Yeah, exactly. That's what I really like about it. And it's very collaborative as well. It feels a lot more collaborative than most RPGs, just from the rules.
That's good.
Or from the rule book, which is nice.
It means everybody
it talks
has
about the
their
GM's
chance.
responsibilities, but the players' responsibilities as well. Yeah.
I think that's something that always needs to be people need to be reminded of that in any game you play, that
Yeah.
everybody playing has a responsibility to not be a twat.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
get involved. I mean, why are you there if you're going to sit there the whole time on your, if it's a role-playing thing, if you're going to sit there the whole time not doing anything at all, why are you there? If you're going to play a board game where you're just going to be pissy when you lose and insufferable when you win, why are you there?
Yep, that's a fair comment.
Yeah.
Looking forward to playing our Necromunda games, actually, for that kind of narrative reason.
Yeah.
And trying to get away from the kind of winning and losing aspect of it. Which I'm just having fun, slinging some dice and just trying to get some stories going.
Yeah, I remember back years ago when I used to play Necromunda when I was younger and stuff like that, and you'd always have you'd end up with those stories of that ganger that fell 5 stories and didn't die, or the ganger he landed on who did die, or that boss who got shot in the first game and had to play the rest of the entire campaign with a gammy leg and one eye and all this kind of stuff. And it's just that story that drives that kind of thing, and that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, it's gone 11:30. It's gone really well. After I was a bit worried when only 9 people were on or something at the start. We're going to have not very many people interacting, but I think it might be our most interactive live chat yet.
I think we have. It's been brilliant. I've loved watching all the comments and seeing all the different combos that have been going on and stuff.
Yeah.
Deadhand says that his brother plays the big robot and he makes him talk in a robotic voice or he can't play. That is exactly the right attitude.
Absolutely, yeah.
If they don't sit there doing the robot half the time and saying Zeep Zorp, then frankly they're doing it wrong.
Rob and Andrew have copped off together, it seems.
We'll go and have fun, you boys.
I'm not sure. I know they're relaxing the rules, but I don't think you can do that yet. I think you have to wait till the 4th of July.
I mean, if you can do that and maintain social distancing, then well, good luck to you. Thanks for everybody for taking part tonight. It's been brilliant, and I really hope
enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
that we can get more of these combos going. And I think we'll stay filthy casuals, and I hope a lot of you stay filthy casuals.
That's one thing I've taken home from tonight is that nobody wants us to become competitive.
That is definitely the case, and that's good because I don't think we could if we wanted to.
Filthy robot casuals. I need that on a t-shirt now as well.
We need some kind of agents of filthy casuals or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to say one other thing, and I can't remember what I was going to say, so I'm going to have to leave it, and it'll come to me once we finish the stream. But, thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. It's been great.
Brilliant. Remain filthy, yes.
Stay filthy, you filthy animals.
You can make a filthy casual logo, Matt, if you're happy to do that. Thank you.
I need to get the guy from, Home Alone, with your filthy animal. With the machine gun, but instead of your filthy animals, you can have your filthy casuals or something like that. That'd be brilliant.
Be good. You might have some copyright issues.
Nah, screw it. No one cares now. That film's too old.
There we go. Keep the change. You filthy animal.
Yeah.
I noticed today, just completely random aside, well, not that random, that Lego have these Lego ideas things that they do the sets. So the Friends Cafe was in one, and there's various other sets that the general public build and then submit as to be made as proper Lego sets. The house from Home Alone has just been selected to be in the next run.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know whether it comes with like heated doorknob.
There are no
irons and things.
There are no 10 or 12 or 15-year-olds who are going to want that, but there are a whole bunch of 30 and 40 and 50-year-olds who are. Yeah. And those are the people
my
who
son,
need to buy it.
Who's just turned 8, got the Friends Cafe for Christmas.
You know,
and I suspect he'll want the Home Alone house, but it looks quite big, so it's probably too expensive. But we'll see.
My eldest got the Home Alone Cafe for his birthday recently. So, there you go.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there you go. Right.
Tim's girlfriend's there. So
it's time for us to go.
Yeah. We've got to go now. Tim's girlfriend says we've got to go now.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks for joining in, guys. Stay safe, and we'll see you all soon.